Dear patient, we all know that the world is in a state of ecological crisis. Many of us have trouble dealing with the consequences. We might feel afraid, angry, depressed, or simply insecure. The more we hear about climate change, the more we sense how little humankind can do to prevent the worst from happening. Academic research on the psychological effects of this realization is still in its earliest stages. Yet, there are some studies on the way these environmental concerns, together with our inborn connectedness to nature, can affect our sense of well-being. Our aim is to help you cope with the existential fears that result from eco-anxiety. We will give you the opportunity to think about your concept of nature. What does it mean today? Being in tune with the natural world strengthens your mental health and prepares you for taking action. So let's get started. In the 1960s, psychoanalyst Erich Fromm coined the term biophilia, describing man's love for nature that seems to be deeply rooted in our genes. A person who lives life to the fullest, he says, will feel attracted to processes of life and prosperity in all spheres. Regardless of a person's origin, we all seem to perceive certain landscapes as aesthetically pleasing. The prospect of such a welcoming natural environment suggests a return to the primordial sources of life itself. Although we feel more and more attracted to nature, we are also ruining it. And perhaps it is because we destroy nature that our love still grows. Critical claim that we are technologically advanced, but culturally backwards. We cherish a highly romanticized image. The natural world we love is a product of imagination, a construction of picturesque and highly saturated, dreamlike images. Our perception is as idealized as it is unrealistic. Spending time in nature has positive effects on physical and mental health. You live in the city and you don't have the opportunity to integrate a leisurely walk in the forest into your everyday life? Don't worry, I have good news for you. The Swedish scientist Roger Ulrich made headlines in the 1980s when he proved that patients recover faster when they have the opportunity to look into the green. The interesting thing is that it doesn't seem to matter whether it's real nature seen through a window or a picture of nature. Ulrich equipped an intensive care unit in Sweden with different images and then observed the healing process of 160 patients with heart diseases. The result of the study was that those who had the image of a wooded riverbank in front of them recovered faster than those who could not see a picture or only an abstract one. So we decided to provide you with a range of nature images that you can download from our website. All you have to do is print them out, place them next to your computer screen, or use them as background images for your electronic devices. And in case you don't feel well, just stare at them for a couple of minutes on a daily basis. Okay, that was lesson 1. I hope you enjoyed it and stay tuned. The next tutorial is entitled The Perception. Hey, in this lesson, I will ask you to contemplate your perception of nature to potentially change it to a more appropriate idea. The introduction of agriculture had the most serious impact on nature, and, importantly, it led humans to distinguish between cultivated and wild nature. In the course of history, the aspects of nature and culture became increasingly distant. But nowadays, the borders are diffuse and blur more and more into each other. The separation between nature and culture is seen by many philosophers as extremely problematic. They think that there is no need to distinguish, and that it's much more important to understand that all forms of life influence each other to form a complicated network on our planet. This is because when nature dies, culture is also doomed to fail. The philosopher Bruno Latour is convinced that we have reached a point where the climate crisis is so great that our entire thinking and actions should be called into question. Our man-made presence in today's environment is complex. We humans have always tried to control nature in order to turn it into a safe place. But it is this tendency that gives us the feeling of being above things. Psychologists from Solastalgia think that we need to overcome this way of thinking to finally achieve personal growth. But our picturesque ideas are key to a fundamental human-centered, anthropocentric way of looking at things. Maybe it helps to look at things from a totally different perspective. By this I mean from Jean Baudrillard's perspective. According to him, the postmodern society we live in is a universe of simulations. In his opinion, we live in a self-produced world that no longer refers to something real. A distinction between the real and the virtual is no longer possible. What is simulated is no longer an image of a real thing. Instead, it forms the real. This real is hyperreal, and thus, more true than nature. Baudrillard states that simulacra influence reality and vice versa, until both merge into hyperreality. Hyperreality thus describes the inability to distinguish a simulation of reality from reality itself. Today we are irrevocably uncoupled from an objective reality, and our current behaviors will lead to further and even more extreme forms of simulations. Whether we will still be able to recognize that we have completely detached ourselves from the real is questionable. Obvious illusions, like Disneyland, are an attempt to secure the fundamental perception of reality by providing the real through the imaginary. The artificial world that was created, with all its exaggeration and idealization, thus serves humans as proof of their existence. Every one of us is exposed to an ever-increasing flood of hyperreal images. We perceive and accept them consciously or unconsciously. They develop into models, even if these images do not necessarily reflect real nature or something natural. I know it can be frightening to observe people who are losing their connection to the natural, the essence that ultimately makes us human. Therefore, I want to give you a question. Does our world of images still allow authentic experiences in nature at all? If you feel the need to discuss your thoughts with me, contact me online. Otherwise, I hope you keep it up with lesson number 3. Welcome to this lesson. I'm glad you got this far. All our lessons are designed to make you understand that changing what we say to ourselves is a very effective way to cope with anxieties and to modify your behavior. As in the previous episodes, we will further contemplate our actions and thoughts to potentially change them. This time, we will discuss them in terms of humanization. Let me start with a study conducted by American scientists. These researchers found, in the course of their experiment, that we would rather buy a fruit if it has human characteristics. Therefore, they used this picture. But what does this result actually tell us? In fables and fairy tales, humanization of nature is a frequent trope. It seems that this form of storytelling is an instinctive need to us humans. We at Solastalgia think that this tendency can actually offer an opportunity to improve our relationship to nature. Look at these happy banana faces, and then try to see human characteristics in other life forms in your everyday life. This can help you to empathize better with other living beings. We tend to humanize because our knowledge about humans is more accurate and easier to retrieve than knowledge about animals or plants. The philosopher Robert Spaban even says that we have to look at non human life anthropomorphically in order to do it justice. In his opinion, we are trapped in our own being, which is okay and not meant disrespectfully. So don't feel guilty and use your humanized way of looking at non human life to improve your relationship with it. What's problematic is that we often have bigger difficulties empathizing with plants. The scientist František Beluska claims that plants are more intelligent organisms than we have so far assumed. Current research claims that plants have senses and communicate with each other and their environment. Plants are capable of remembering and even manipulating other species. They have the ability to gather information from their surroundings and can remember things and share them with others to improve their living conditions. If scientists are right and plants have a certain level of consciousness, we definitely need to treat them differently. Our focus should be on adapting our actions to the idea that we are one species among many, and thus are part of a large and complex system. We should not forget that we only exist because other life does, and must therefore question our constant feelings of singularity and superiority. To summarize it in 3 words, life forms are interconnected. Okay, this is temporarily the last episode, but stay tuned for more to come in the future. Furthermore, I would highly appreciate your feedback, so please let me know if I helped you tackle your eco-anxiety.